Chapter 44 is continuing on the discussion we had before, but it's going to get now a lot more practical and instructive and detailed. So we mentioned earlier that there are two types of love, as there are two types of fear. There's the higher level of fear, the lower level of fear, and as well, there's a higher level of love and a lower level of love. In general, just to remind ourselves what the general difference was, the higher level of love is a gift. It's not something we can achieve on our own, as it is in the higher level of love and fear, both of them. You can't achieve it by working hard, by meditating, by figuring. It comes from developing self to a point that God gives you a gift of this higher level. Whereas the lower level is something you can achieve by working on yourself and by thinking and meditating. What is the difference inside of ourselves, besides one being a gift and one coming through effort? The difference is the relationship that we have to the one we fear, or the relationship we have to the one we love. In both of the cases, in the higher level of fear and in love, the relationship is that I cease to exist as a separate entity. I recognize that nothing exists outside of God. So it's a much greater sense of giving self over. Not that I love God or I fear God. There is no separate me. There is no I that loves, no I that fears. I become part of, and I recognize that all I am is an extension of godliness. It's like the right arm, so to speak, looking at the rest of the body and saying, I love you guys. And you realize, hey, you're part of us. I mean, you love you guys. You know, what do you people say about us? We're one. It's a recognition that I'm not a separate identity. But the meditation comes from the following process in love. And it's a very interesting perspective. The love that we come to love God, from the lower level of love, as you mentioned many times, this isn't so low, but it's the lower level of the two, is that we recognize that all the things that we care about in life, starting from the physical and material level of belongings and enjoyments and family and every single interest we have, and spiritually, all of that comes from a much greater place. And we think to ourselves logically, why should I be satisfied with a crumb? Why should I just be satisfied with the enjoyment of things that are material and temporary, or lower levels of spirituality, when I can attach myself to the source of it all? I can tap into the ultimate source. You know, they used to have like a joke. If somebody gave you one wish, what would you wish for? One answer is, I wish for a million more wishes. I wish for endless supply of wishes. Meaning, why just wish for one thing when you could tap into the source? So the concept and the idea of love in the lower level means that it benefits me, but it benefits me meaning in a very logical process. It makes sense to love something which is much grander than what I loved yesterday. Yesterday, my attraction was, let's say, something delicious, something valuable, something enjoyable, something meaningful. Today, my level has reached a point that I developed and I thought about it, that I want to have a love and a relationship with that, where it all comes from. So that's what we said until now. Now we're going to say the following. Chapter 44 is going to tell us that each one of these levels have really multiple levels. And the reason why we have to know that is fascinating. Well, we're going to see something which this Tanya is going to give us is a phenomenal insight. This is not the intention of this chapter directly, but a benefit is a phenomenal insight of how and in which ways is Jewish life structured, and in which ways is it open for personal relationship. In other words, where does the pre-programmed cookie cutter Judaism end and start? And where does my personal relationship with God begin? And that's what we're going to cover indirectly. We're going to cover that to get to the point. But because of that truth, because each person does have an individual relationship with Hashem, there must be more than one way to connect. Because there's only one way to connect, then only one type of person could connect to God, as we'll see. So we'll start on page 124, if you're following on the English, chapter 44. Paragraph Dalet. V'hinei kol madregas ahava mibeis madregas elu. All of it, well, he says all, but both of the above mentioned loves. The great love, which is, we said, the higher level of love. Love like cool water. Love that comes as a gift from God. that type of love, and the love, the lower level of love, which is a love that comes from within the world, from meditation, that we can develop, which is like a passionate fire. Each one has an infinite number of levels. Not like we said before, we can divide each category into two parts, each category into three parts. Each category can be divided into an infinite amount of levels. There is an infinite amount of ways to, meaning the spectrum of Ava Rabba and the spectrum of Avas Elam is infinite. There's thousands and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands and more of levels within each one. Kol chad lefum shir delay. Each level designed and matching for that person. In other words, every person can relate to Hashem on a different level of this love. This chapter we're going to analyze a couple of different times at different places in the Zohar where it explains verses in the Torah. He says, like it's explained in the Zohar, there's a line that we say, we all know this line, it's from Eishes Chayil. He is known by the gates, her husband. We're talking about praising a woman of valor. And the simple explanation is King Solomon is describing that a man who has a wonderful wife becomes much more known for his qualities because she helps him become a great man, how he dresses and how he conducts himself. So he becomes much more respected and much more liked and known for his qualities because of a good wife. That's what it means on a simple level in the writings of Eishes Chayil, of King Solomon. But we know that King Solomon's writings in Shir Hashirim, and in general when he describes a relationship between a man and a woman, a husband and a wife, while it's nice and simple and beautiful to explain it in a relationship, and it's so beautiful, the husband or wife relationship, the Torah gives it so much value, there's also the truth what he was talking about. It doesn't take away from the simple meaning, but the truth is he wasn't talking about a husband and a wife and a romance and love. He was talking about God and the Jewish people. We know God is considered the husband and the wife is considered the Jewish people. Just like in a relationship physically, the man provides for the woman, and there are things the woman provides for the man. There's a relationship. In general, the man's called the giver in the creation of a child, and the woman's called the receiver, and takes that gift and creates reality, children, etc. Same thing is a relationship with God and the Jewish people. There are things that God gives to us and provides for us. There are things that we reciprocate that God asks us to do. And there's a general thing that the sustenance that we have comes through God to us. And we have to be a vessel for it, etc. And the whole relationship of husband and wife is a metaphor of God. And by the way, the more we understand our relationship with God, the better we can be as spouses to our husband or to our wife, because we understand what the ultimate and altruistic relationship is. But in any case, when it says here, Noida Bashar and Baila, can be meant in a much, much more interesting way. Noida, we know, comes from the word das. We say there's Chachma, there's Bina, and there's das. Chachma is conception, Bina is comprehension, and das is relationship to it, the association, connection, meaning making it personal. In other words, das means that something becomes personal to me. It matters. Like someone discussing a disease or a court case or anything else, as long as it has nothing to do with you, it's not emotional. It's very fascinating to study this topic. And you'll find out, oh, this court case is about me. Suddenly it becomes very personal because it means something to me. But das has another meaning. When it says that Adam and Eve were together as a husband and wife, it says as Adam Yada Eschav, he knew. It's called a biblical sense of knowing, means becoming one, essentially, intimately one. So Noida, how does God come one with us? Noida, the relationship, the oneness, not just how God becomes known. Noida, he makes himself known. He makes himself accessible. Basha'arim, the word sha'arim could mean a number of things. It means gates, like we said before, that the husband becomes known by the gates of the city. But basha'arim could also mean measurements. Like we know when we're trying to figure out how much matzah to have on Pesach and how much dough you have to separate challah, there's a measurement, how much basha'arim. Noide basha'arim baila. We become known by different measurements to our husband, to God. In other words, there are numerous gates, numerous measurements of how we relate to Hashem. So this verse that we say, which is so beautiful, now has a whole nother meaning, that the way a Jew relates to Hashem is in many, many levels. Basha'arim, it depends on each person. Some people feel it this way. Some people feel it that way. Some people, what makes them feel meaningful and inspired is this part of davening. Some people, it's another part of davening. Some people get very moved by making kiddush or lighting Shabbos candles or separating challah, and some people don't. Some get more. There's differences in each person how they express feelings, how they express love. It's because their personality, the character, the way we understand things, the way we interact, we're all different. We have a different experience, as we'll see furthermore in a moment. The EU is yada v'isdabik. What does it mean? Says a Zohar. He becomes known. Isyada means to become known. Isdabik comes connected. The word isdabik, we have a number of places. One of the unfortunate places, the other word idabik comes from the word dibuk by dibuk. We know one of the ways that a soul can enter a body. There are various ways how a soul can enter a body. The normal, healthy way is where it comes in through birth and comes in through the process of creation. There are times where you can get a booster soul called ibur, that God gives you a gift of a little booster soul that He can attach to your soul to assist you. There's Gilgal. One of the unfortunate ways is dibuk. When a different soul connects to your soul, it doesn't belong there. He attaches itself. So the word dibuk means to be attached, and he comes into the other person's body, and it's very unfortunate. Here we're talking in a positive way. Dibuk in the way of connection. Same word. We become connected to God. God becomes connected and known to us. Each person according to what they can achieve and sort of what their heart is able to measure. There's a very famous story we all know about Zusha. Zusha was a chassid, lived in the times of the Alter Rebbe, and he was a chassid of the Maggid, a student of the Maggid of Mezrich, and he had a famous line that he said that when I come to heaven, they're not going to ask you why weren't you as wise as Moses, why weren't you as great and pious as Aaron, etc. They're going to ask me, why weren't you like Zusha could have been? That's all they're going to ask me. There was a more later, in the times of the last 100 years, there was another chassid whose name was Michal Bliner, or Michal the Alter, a famous, well-known chassid, the Chassidic figure that's talked about in the stories and in the understanding of Chassidic life in the previous generation. My grandfather always mentions him. He would say, they're not going to ask me why I didn't fear God or love God, and he goes the same thing. He mentions all different people. They're going to ask you one question. Did you fear God and love God like you're able to do it? Like a Michal could do it. In other words, no one has a measurement game, and it's not a competition against the person next to you in shul or against someone else who loves God more, who fears God more. It's different. My fear of God and your fear of God and her fear of God and his fear of God are different, as in love. Why? Because we react the same way. We're different how we respond to flavors of food, how we respond to tastes, how we respond to colors. We're different in our nature. One of the gifts, it says Hashem made an interesting gift. What was that? Not a gift, a trick, so to speak. Usually when you take a coin mold and you mold coins for a mint, when you're going to make coins for the country, and you put the press on, every single coin comes out identical. It says that God, when He made people, when He made man, He used the same mold for every single person, and every person came out identical in the sense of 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, a chin, hair, etc. But everyone looks different. Not only we look different, we think different, we act different, we are different. One of the brachas you say when you meet a large group of people, a few 100,000 Jews, is Hashem, how He's able to make so many different opinions. Sometimes you wonder, how can this person have such a different opinion than me on politics, on economics, on view, on philosophy? Don't they see it my way? Or don't they see it this way? And the answer is no, they see it a different way. We're very different in how we respond and how we react and how we translate and internalize events. We both can experience the same thing, and one person can become happy, one person sad. One person can become inspired, and one person can be dejected. Because it all depends how you translate and how you internalize that based on your character, your chemistry, your personality, your experiences, etc. In other words, Hashem made us all the same in a certain level. As we'll see in a moment, there's a part where we're the same, but in truth, inside we're different. Not just we look different, but we think different and we feel different. If I enjoy the flavor of a food and I say, wow, this steak tastes delicious, I might be thinking about a different aspect of the steak that the person next to me also says it's delicious. But one person found another aspect delicious. And not only that, how we see colors, how we appreciate art. I don't know if we all see colors the same exact way. And we interpret it the same way. We say, that's red, that's yellow, that's blue. We all have our way, how we see things, how we hear things, how it sounds to us, how it appears to us. And that's good. We have different personalities, different biology, different chemistry, different feelings, and experiences. And that's important to know when we're serving Hashem. We're not going to be the same, and we're not expected to be the same. So when it comes to love of God, we're not all going to have love type A or type B. No, you're going to have in type A 1,000,000 different levels, and in type B 1,000,000,000 different levels. There's a very interesting verse we say it in davening, and it's brought down, I believe, in Tillim, that it says, that which is secretive is for God, and that which is known is for man. And if you say the verse carefully, it says, "Hanistoris Hashem Elokeinu." Okay, before I explain it, let me tell you what the verse talks about originally, and then I'll say what he's saying here. The verse is talking about a court. There are certain things that a court can make rulings on, and certain things they can't. What does that mean? Courts could only judge what they see. They can't judge what you were thinking. What does that mean? A judge can't say, I know that what you did was wrong, but I think you had good intentions. What did you see? That's why you can judge. Or you can't say someone did something good, but they did it for the wrong reason. You could only judge what you saw with your eyes, and that's it. Hashem can judge that which is hidden. So the pasuk, usually when we say that which is hidden is to God, that which is known is to us, refers to judgment. And there's a very fascinating story, by the way, with in the desert. Maybe at the end, if you remind me, I'll go into it and take a few minutes to discuss a fascinating story with the one who gathered wood in the desert, why he was executed when he had the best intentions. He had the best intentions while he gathered wood, and yet he was punished and executed. Very interesting insight into the story. But the bottom line is, that's how the pasuk means simply. The Alter Rebbe says the deeper meaning to the pasuk. And he says, Hanistaris refers to love and fear of God. That which is hidden refers to love and fear of God. That which is known refers to mitzvahs. What does that mean? You see, we're not talking here about how other people see it. We're talking about how we experience something. There's every mitzvah has two aspects to it. There's the aspect of the mitzvah, which is a revealed aspect. For an example, you have to put a mezuzah on your doorpost. That mezuzah is what's called the revealed part of the mitzvah. That is the revealed aspect of the mitzvah, and for that it's equal. Every single Jewish person has to do the revealed part the same. You have to put a mezuzah up, has to be written with 22 lines, and it has to be on the right side of the doorpost, and it has to be written by a scribe, handwritten on parchment with a special ink, and it has to, etc., etc. Then there's the hidden part of the mitzvah, the feelings, how I feel about the mitzvah. I can't say because I feel I'm putting up 3 mezuzahs. Or you know what, in this room I don't feel so spiritual, no mezuzahs. It doesn't matter how you feel. There's one Torah, one mitzvah, and that's how we do it. It's equal for every single person. You can't say, well, I feel more spiritual if I do this, if I light candles later at night during Kiddush. That's not how it's done. But the feelings of the mitzvah, that's each person different. The hidden part of the mitzvah, that every single person is unique. How you experience the mitzvah of mezuzah, how you experience the mitzvah of matzah, how you experience the mitzvah of Shabbos. While there's no difference on the outside of the mitzvah, inside, the hidden part is unique to every single person. Every single person does it differently. In other words, in love and in fear, it's limitless in how we approach a mitzvah, how we serve God, but not in conduct, in physical action, and in the structure of a mitzvah. And this, by the way, is a fundamental insight into Yiddishkeit. Oftentimes people say, listen, this one doesn't talk to me, this doesn't speak to me, I feel better if I do it this way. So you have to understand that when it comes to a mitzvah structure, that is the revealed part of the mitzvah. That is the same for every single Jew. Moshe Rabbeinu puts on tefillin. Our matriarch Sarah lit the Shabbos candles, the same as any woman lighting Shabbos candles today. And Moshe puts on tefillin, we put on tefillin today. And the same thing with every mitzvah of Sukkah and Lulav and Esrog. We all do the same exact mitzvah. But how it's experienced, you can't compare it. Could you compare how the Baal Shem Tov put on tefillin to how Yankel Goldberg puts on tefillin? I mean, it's a whole different world, a whole different experience. So therefore, we have to see this perspective that there's two sides of the relationship to Hashem. There's a physical side, which is revealed, and then there's the emotional, the intellectual, the feeling side, the fear and love. And I say both intellectual and feeling, even though they're very different, but proper intellect brings the proper feelings. That's a very integral thing we discussed earlier, that how you feel about something is a result of how you think about it. Okay. So he says, Ki Torah achas u'mishpat echad l'kulanu, b'kiyum kol ha'torah v'mitzvos b'chinas vaisa. When it comes to action, there is one Torah which is for all the Jewish people. One Torah which applies to every single person in every generation. A Jew who lives 2,000 years ago and a Jew who lives in the year 2020, as odd as 2020 is, the mitzvah of mezuzah is the same. The mitzvah of shechita is the same, shechting an animal. The mitzvah of Shabbos candles hasn't changed. These mitzvahs are equal to every single person. When it comes to feelings of a mitzvah, fear and love, that is Hashem kanal, which is not so when it comes to feelings. Feelings of how you relate to Hashem is a spectrum which is endless, and therefore two people could do the same exact mitzvah, identically performance, meaning doing the same exact mitzvah with the same amount of matzah, the same amount of maror, the same amount of wine by the seder, and one person's inspired and dancing in their heart and feeling the love and picturing the exodus both out of Egypt then and the personal exodus out of our limitations today. And somebody else is just going through the routine saying, it's nice. They both do the mitzvah. They both get checked, boop, you did the mitzvah. But when it comes to how they performed it internally and how they experienced a relationship with Hashem at that moment, that's endless. And that's what we're saying in this chapter. That there's a huge difference in how you perform a mitzvah and how you relate to God at each of these levels to an infinite number of ways. But here's the point that I want to say here. There's one aspect where we're all the same. While it's true that in love and fear, every person's different, there's one aspect how we're the same, that the love that we have is the same for every single person. Because this love is something which is intensely internal. We're 2 lines in the bottom on page 124. There is one level, one love that encompasses all the loves, all the layers of Ahava Rabbah and Ahavas Elam, both within the realm of the higher level of love. And this is the intense love where you cease to exist as a separate identity. And the love of Ahavas Elam, which is developed through your own intellect and through your own character and your own work, that you develop this love. Both of them have one unifying truth, one unifying aspect. This aspect is equal by every Jew. You can't say by one more, by one less. This is something we all have equally, this concept. And it's not something we developed, it's something we got inherited. There's a very central idea that the Alter Rebbe introduced much earlier in Tanya. We had also in chapter 41, in chapter 42, but we discussed it much earlier, and that is there's a certain gift that we get biologically as Jews from Avraham Avinu. You see, there are certain aspects of being Jewish that it's up to you if you do things or not. You have to earn it, you have to work on it. Judaism is not a drive-by experience where you sort of watch something happen. It's an interactive experience. You get it's hands-on. But there's an aspect of our relationship that was done by Avraham, and his actions bequeathed it as a Yerusha in the DNA. That means in our DNA, literally biologically, there's an aspect of ourselves that has certain qualities. And the Rambam goes through what the qualities are, the certain characteristics of a Jew. One of them, by the way, is the inability to be cruel. The Rambam says if you find a Jew who is very cruel, check his lineage. Meaning you have to. It's something which is unique to our character. In addition to that, there's a gift of a natural love to Hashem. We mentioned this in chapter 19 that a Jew by nature, without effort, without wanting it, even if you deny it, you can't change it. And that is we have a love to Hashem. It's there. It's a natural, like a mother's love to a child. It's our love to Hashem. That is bequeathed to us, given to us by Avraham Avinu all the way through. And by the way, one of the fascinating things are that we discussed this in chapter 2, it's going back a couple of years, and that is that a Jew who becomes Jewish, a convert that converts, how does he have this DNA? And there's different ways that it's explained. The general concept, just to cover real quickly, is a convert that converts is a possibility. A non-Jew to convert is an impossibility. What does it mean? It's impossible for someone who's not Jewish to become Jewish. As the Torah says, a convert who converts, which is an interesting statement because you'd think it would say a non-Jew converts. Like they say, do you put toast in a toaster? No, you put bread in a toaster and toast comes out. Why does it say a convert who comes to convert? And the answer is, and the Rebbe explains this in the talk, a convert always had a Jewish soul. he was born with that soul. For some reason, God put in the Johnson family or the McHenry family, the Smith family, God put in that one of their children, two of their children have Jewish souls, or all of them. God has a reason for it. But that Jewish soul was hidden. The conversion process doesn't give you a soul, it reveals your true identity, which means you always were a convert. And when you convert properly, it allows the release. The Rebbe uses the word, if I'm not mistaken, like something locked in a box that wasn't accessible and makes it accessible. So a convert who becomes Jewish really is just revealing his true identity. But it can only be revealed through a proper process. You can't say, well, I'll reveal it by feeling. No, you have to go through the process and the conversion, etc. But this idea explains how even a convert can have, and as a side note, just once on the subject, and furthermore, where do the converts get their souls from? Which is absolutely fascinating. Why, by converts, we say the son, who are their mother and father? Avraham and Sarah. Do we do it just because it's nice and we go back to the earliest parents? No. It says Avraham and Sarah lived for 75 years together as husband and wife before they had children, or 65 years, or 75, depends what you know. But the bottom line is all those years, every time they were together as husband and wife, they created, it wasn't just a non-event, they created souls, millions of souls, hundreds of thousands of souls are created without bodies. And those souls have gone into the world. Those are the souls that go into converts. So they truly are the children of Avraham and Sarah. Those were created by the union of Avraham and Sarah as husband and wife, where the souls were created and brought into the world, and the converts have those souls. So they have the soul and they have it inserted in them. That's why they're called the son of Avraham and Sarah. But they also have this gift too. So even if you were not born, so to speak, Jewish, this concept applies to you as well. It's an inheritance. Now we're going to go and analyze a verse that's written in Isaiah, in Yeshaya. An interesting verse. It says in Yeshaya, the prophet describes that when Mashiach comes, he says we're going to sing a certain praise to God, a certain song. He doesn't tell us the tune, but he tells us the words. Part of the tune is, part of the song is V'nafshi ivesicha. Let's see this inside. Second line on page Samach Gimel, next page. V'hainu mashakasava zohar, and this is what the Zohar tells us. Al pasuk on the verse in Yeshaya that it says, Nafshi ivesicha balayla v'gemer. My soul yearns for you at night. Now, I just translated the verse incorrectly. Why? If you read it properly, it doesn't say my soul thirsts for you at night. It says, V'nafshi, my soul, ivisicha, I thirst for you by night. It should have said, V'nafshi ivisach, or ivisicha, or sorry, V'nafshi ivsach, it should have said. My soul yearns for you. Ivsach would have been the right wording. Ivisicha means I yearn for you. So do I yearn for you, or does my soul yearn for you? The grammar is incorrect. And the Zohar is bothered by the incorrect grammar. So the Zohar explains it differently. It doesn't just mean my soul thirsts for you, as a simple reading is, because that can't be only correct because it doesn't say ivsach. It says ivisicha. Ivisicha. What it means is my soul doesn't refer to my soul. My soul refers to God. Nafshi, we're calling God. You are my soul. We're telling God, you are nafshi, you are my soul. And therefore, I yearn for you, which means the Alter is going to explain here in Tanya. I'll say it outside first, then we'll do it inside. He's going to explain that the yearning that a person has for God, that love and that yearning, is from the recognition and the truth that God is our soul. What does that mean? Nafshi, our soul, we have a body and a soul. What keeps our body being different from a lump of flesh and blood and bone mass? And unfortunately, when someone passes away, they're just a body. I don't want to say just because a body is a holy thing, but it's just a body. The soul, the neshama, gives it life. But where does the neshama come from? The neshama comes from God. So v'nafshi, we're telling God, you are nafshi, you are my soul, you are my life. You are everything of me. You're my everything. You're my soul, you're my life, you're my source. And therefore, ivisicha, I love you. Meaning, who is saying I love you? I'm saying I love you. Who am I saying it to? To nafshi. But nafshi doesn't mean my soul as it's found in my body. Nafshi means the origin of my soul, God. But nafshi, God, ivisicha, I love you. Where balayla? I'll explain the word balayla in a minute. So, but what is the idea of a nafshi ivisicha, I love you, God? The greatest love that a person has in the world is for their own life. A person loves their own life more than anything else. A healthy person who is told, You ask them, what's your favorite thing? And you say, my favorite thing is, chocolate chip cookies made by Debouche. Best thing in the world. And then, or better, not the bet challah, whatever it is. Some delicious, they say to you, okay, how about this? I'm going to give you a bag full of them, and then I'm going to kill you. No, it's not worth it. Why? I thought your favorite thing is the cookies. No. My favorite thing is, but life is more than that. Meaning life is valuable. Let's go the other way around for a second. So you ask a person, what pain would you go through that God forbid you shouldn't pass away? If a person has to stay alive and it's going to cost them discomfort and uncomfortability, people go through the most difficult and most painful, unfortunately, we see with friends of ours, chemotherapy and other difficult processes to stay alive. We have a good friend of ours, unfortunately, passed away after years, but they had to amputate both of his legs and his hips. And what a person does for their life, is it worth it? Yes, because life is the most precious thing. Think another point. Someone who saved your life one time, 30 years ago, the rest of your life, you're indebted to them. Someone else gave you a job, you're indebted to them a lot too, amazing. But the person that saved your life, God forbid, somebody fell into a river, so a situation came, the appreciation you have for that person is tremendous. Life is the most precious commodity we have at all. The problem is we don't think about it. We don't think about it because it's so present. There's an idea that says in Chassidus, Tainug Tamidi Eine Tainug. A consistent pleasure is not a pleasure. That's one of the problems in marriages that happens. Aside from real problems that can come up, there's a different problem called boredom. Boredom is boring. I had this thing yesterday. This is old news to me. I already had this cookie. I had this. I had it so many times. I lose my appreciation. There's a concept that life is not appreciated until it's almost not there anymore. When do you finally value how much life is? When you only have, God forbid, a small time left, or if, God forbid, it's a risk of being taken away from you. Balayla, when it's dark. When do God, that's what the verse means. God, my source of life, when do I fully appreciate you? In the foxhole. When do I when that moment, I can't fool myself. The real me comes out, meaning I love you and I value you and I need you and I want you, is at a time when it's balayla, when it seems to be a concealment of Lila darkness that's not present. A person who has their family members close by, unfortunately, is it true about even a limb. A person who has their right arm doesn't know how much they value it until, God forbid, it might have to be amputated. Because suddenly you realize, wow, I can't live without this. Why didn't you think about it the last 20 years? Was it important to you? I just didn't think about it because I took it for granted. Life is not one arm. It's all of you. Life is the most precious, the most valuable, the most us, it's the ultimate. There's nothing more valuable in life. They used to have a joke from a comedian, I forgot who it was. He said, the guy says to him, he gets mugged, money of your life. He says, I'm thinking. But the bottom line is, life is the most precious thing in a healthy person, in the person who's fine. Therefore, if we recognize the truth, and that truth only comes out at certain times, that God is the provider of life, He's nafshi, He's our soul, then that natural love doesn't need explaining. No one needs a class, no one needs instructive. When a person finds a long-lost mother, and they're looking for their mother their whole life, and they were separated during the war, and they come together, no one has to say, okay, now I want you to read a book about why it's important to love your mother. Here, read chapter 7. It really talks about it. Really clear why you should have a good feeling and a love to your mother. You don't need that. I don't need to be told why. I just love her, and especially a mother to a child, because that is the truth. If we can just realize this truth, this is a gift from Hashem through Avraham Avinu to us. There's an inheritance that we got, all of us equally. Every Jew, and like we said, sometimes it happens in a foxhole, sometimes it happens in a moment of difficulty, in a tragedy, but this love, this yearning, unfortunately, it's taken for granted. Thankfully, it's present, and that's why it's taken for granted. It's so easily accessible. But the truth is, this is something that we have to let it come to the fore, but it's there. The only question is, like the convert, it has to be uncovered. It has to be found and appreciated. Let's see this inside, and this is going to explain how this verse of Nafshi V'sicha, etc. The verse from Isaiah. V'zeu shekosov v'nafshi v'sicha. This is that it says, my soul, I yearn for you, because my soul refers to God. I yearn for you as I. My soul, my God, I yearn for you, Balayla, when it's night. when it's not so simple, when it's not so accessible, when it's not so easy. Kalema means to say, Hashem nafshi, since God, you are my soul. And my true life, I recognize you're my source. Therefore I yearn for you. I yearn and I desire you. It's like a person who wants life, a person that just is in the point now, and that God forbid he's told that God forbid that, hey, we have a friend of mine actually in Toulouse, France, classmate of mine just found out that his wife is quite ill with cancer. Hashem should give her a for shalema. And suddenly his life was changed completely. The only thing that matters now to him, if you ask him what matters to him right now, is that his wife should live. She should live. She should be fine. Everything else doesn't matter anymore. And imagine for her as well. And if a person, God forbid, is weak or pained, meaning he's sick, he's not doing well, so that's when you suddenly have the feeling and desire and the yearning to connect and to feel and to desire that. And the Alter Rebbe gives a very interesting example here, which I have to see more later why he chooses this example, but what the lesson he's telling us is, he says, similarly, when a person goes to sleep at night, we know as Jewish people, when you go to sleep at night, what happens is your soul goes back to heaven. A small residue stays inside of you, so you're alive, but the primary part of your soul, the faculties that function, and therefore you don't hear properly and think properly and see properly and feel and touch, if you're really asleep, you can't function, especially if you go into full sleep, you can't function. Some people, we don't realize, you say, hey, when I'm sleeping, I hear things. That's not called sleeping. That's called falling asleep. True sleep was when you get into the, what they say, REM. You only need a few minutes of that to get to the actual deep sleep. If you get to there, you're actually not home right now. You're not home. And at that point, your soul actually leaves the body in a certain part, or most part, and a small residue stays. And that's what we say every morning. Thank you, Hashem, for returning my soul to me. It's refreshed, it's cleaned, it's inspired. It's like charging your phone battery at night. Difference is, there you take the battery out of the phone. Now, we used to do it, I think, take the battery out to charge it, the old phones. Now the battery stays in the phone, meaning the battery is taken out, the soul's taken out, it goes to its source, it gets fully charged, inspired, encouraged, and it gets a little cleaning process of some of the basic residue, and it starts fresh the next day. So when we go to sleep at night, if someone fully contemplates what's going on here, if you realize your battery is being taken out, you'd say, please, don't forget to bring it back in the morning. I need it. He desires and he wants that his soul should return to him. He wants his soul to come back to him in the morning. It's very important. It affects your schedule. You need your soul to come back to you so you could function and live. The same way this is the person that Yeshaya is quoting. But nafshi v'sicha, God, just like I yearn at night for my soul to come back in the morning, that feeling, like hope it comes back, just like if God forbid someone's sick, he yearns and desires life, that's how I yearn and wish and long for you, my God, my soul. To draw it down into him. How is it done? Through studying Torah. As we know, we said in chapter 3 or chapter 4 in Tanya, 4 and 5, I think it was, remember already, and that is about the difference between Torah and Mitzvahs. Torah and Mitzvahs, we said, is like garments, Mitzvahs are like garments, and Torah is like food. What's the difference in garment and food? A number of differences. One thing is, a mitzvah, after you do it, you don't have to do anything to keep your mitzvah true when you did it. In other words, if I put on tefillin now, but before I put on tefillin, I was not thinking about anything important. I was eating a non-kosher food, and I wasn't doing mitzvahs. And afterwards, I wasn't doing mitzvahs. But when I wore tefillin, meaning mitzvahs like clothes. When I dress up like a pilot right now, I look like a pilot. I might later dress up as a gardener. I might do the same thing, by the way. I can be actually gardening my garden, and I'm gardening. I can take a shower and put on a suit and go to a wedding about mitzvah. Then I can put on, the right clothes and go to the kitchen with an apron and cook. I change my garments 3 times in 3 hours. Each time it depends on what I was doing. Garments are changeable. Food, not so much. Eat a big lunch, you keep it for a long time. Eat a big lunch for 10 weeks, you'll have a gift that will last with you a long, long time because food becomes part of you. Mitzvahs don't become part of you. It's an experience. You get a reward for it. Torah becomes part of you. Torah becomes one with you. Torah is like food that's ingested, that you cannot point to your arm and say, this spot is the cookies, this spot is the pizza, this spot's the vegetables. All you are is your body, because your food that you ate becomes you. Torah becomes you. That's why you have to stand up and respect a Torah scholar, even when he's not studying Torah, because the Torah is engraved in his heart. It's part of him. It's one with him. Therefore, a great Torah scholar, even when he's not studying Torah, when a Torah comes into the room, you got to stand up. When a scholar comes in, even though he doesn't have the Torah with him or part of him that you see, it's there. So Torah is the way to draw down godliness into you in the strongest way. Now, when I wake up from my sleep at night, you see, a lot of us wake up from the sleep by day, which is not the action of the Rebbes. And we're going to, next week, I'll talk about it a little bit, the Alter Rebbe's schedule. He started his day 9 p.m. 9 p.m. at night, he started his day. And that went, the study Torah session, that went till the next morning at 6. And then he would get ready for davening and daven until about 9. And then he would study. And then he would beat some Hasidim. Before he did, he had a coffee. Then after that, he would have his one meal of the day. And then he would go and study, etc. And then he would go back into routine, take a nap for a few hours, get up at 9 and start his day again. The day of, we start our day in the morning because that's how we function. But nighttime is considered a very special time to study and to learn. A lot of people, there's a custom to get up at midnight, at just past midnight. A lot of the great Rebbes would sleep from, late in the evening, let's say 9, 10, until midnight, or earlier until midnight, and get up. And from midnight, they would be awake until the morning, and then daven shachris, etc. Getting up by night is a sign of the urgency and the feeling that I can't wait till tomorrow to do something. I can't start tomorrow. It's too. A lot of times the kid said, tell a kid tomorrow morning is your birthday. The kid can't wait till tomorrow. Some people live it. I just heard a fascinating idea about love and fear, how we are such a different world than great people. One of the great students of the Maggid Mezrich, his name was the Aaron of Karlin. Great holy, we mentioned him in Yom Kippur, our sitter, in this fine print to try and get that feeling that he had when he said about Hamelach in the prayers in the morning. So he was a colleague of the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe once told somebody, he died very young, he died at 36 years old. The Alter Rebbe once told somebody that if you want to know how much fear Aaron of Karlin felt all day to God, his feelings, he said, imagine a person standing before the firing range to be executed. And they pulled the trigger. As the trigger is pulled, that feeling that a person has, we can't imagine. That's how he felt 24 hours a day. But that's only, it says the Alter Rebbe, that fear, that feeling, that intense in tuneness with God, but that's only his relaxed state of fear. His higher state of fear, he says, a mind can't comprehend it. I can't explain it. That's the best metaphor I can give to you. Understand his how you have systolic and diastolic, up the full and the lower pressure. Full pressure, I can't explain. Meaning it's a different world of love, different world of feeling, how they get up and how they daven and how they felt God. But the concept we're explaining here is every single person, if you think about this meditation, can wake up the true sense of self. Unfortunately, most times it's woken up, it's not because we want to do, it's because something happened in our lives, either a near miss or other things happen where suddenly we feel that yearning, as the expression goes, in the foxhole, everyone's a believer, or there are no atheists in the foxhole. Because at that moment, there's no time to play games, to tell, do I believe, do I not believe, how do I know I believe, etc. We'll stop here. We'll continue next week from here, going further into, sorry, 2 more lines, I'm sorry. There's 2 more lines to the end of this. Like the Zohar says over there, the Boi Barnash, the Boi means a need, Barnash a person, from his love. A person, because of his love for God, needs Lemekem B'Kol Laila, to wake up at night, to go and pray until the morning. A person, because of your love, you should jump out of bed at night. That's what he means. They get up at night. A person should jump out of bed at night and just start praying until the morning. That's how live and how present this feeling of love should be. It's just that, well, as we'll see, it's a work. It doesn't come easily, but it's something which is equal to every single person. We'll stop here and wish everybody a beautiful month. The month of Kislev is truly a joyous month, a happy month, a month filled with Hasidic holidays, and we should experience them and enjoy them. Have a beautiful, enjoyable day, and stay healthy.